Hey there, ProSide Small Group Leaders. Thank you for joining another Small Group Leaders podcast where we help you to prepare to lead your small groups. Pastor Billy here, joined with Pastor Coach.
Yes,
and we're excited to dive into part 3 of our series. Is it part 3? It is part 3. Wow. REALationships. And hopefully this has been a helpful series for you as we're just reflecting on God's design for our relationships. First of all, it's meant to be an intimate relationship with God, one another, and now diving into this idea of marriage and what does this look like. And today talking about singleness. How do we live in a single season and dating season for many people in a way that honors God and His purpose for us? And so I just want to read the main thought here in the discussion guide as we launch off. First of all is that it says relationships were never meant to be random or purely romantic. God designed relationships for shared life and shared mission. While dating as we know it is not directly described in the Bible, Scripture gives clear wisdom for relationships and decision making. The most important decision we'll ever make is to follow God. The second most important is who we'll follow God with in marriage.
So true.
With that in mind, dating is not meant to be casual. The goal should be preparation for covenant. God, I love that statement right there. And, this just, first of all, flies in the face of what most of modern culture teaches us.
Yeah.
I mean, every song, every movie is about the hookup culture, dating culture, and it really is about fun, pleasure, self-actualization, self-gratification. But when you read the Bible, it's really meant to be about fulfilling the purpose of God, right? And you think about it, and all of our preachers hit on this at a certain level, but, relationships are meant to serve God's purpose. God said from the very beginning, Genesis 2, it's not good for man to be alone. Why? Because mankind could not fulfill its purpose outside of the marriage relationship.
Right.
Think about it. To fill the earth with the goodness of God, as we've been talking about in the last series, it takes families to do that.
Right.
Where you need to get married to produce families that can then fill the earth. And so therefore, purpose comes before partnership. Because before God brought Eve to Adam, He gave him a clear directive to work the garden, right? To name the animals, to begin his role of subduing and ruling over the earth. And Adam was busy doing that when God put him to sleep and then made Eve specifically for Adam. And so Adam wasn't out hunting.
Right.
You know what I mean? He wasn't going to the club in Ede. He wasn't going to the Eden clubs. You know what I mean? Checking out the gorillas and the giraffes. Like, are you the one? Are you the one that's supposed to be my partner? He was just busy doing his purpose, and God at the right time brought Eve to him. And I love that He made Adam go to sleep.
Right.
And there's a lot to that sometimes we're too searching, and we just need to go to sleep and trust God at the right time. But I love the fact that He was busy fulfilling His purpose when God brought Eve to him. And so dating, therefore, is for discernment with direction, right? We're discerning, are you the helper that's suitable for me,
Right.
for my purpose, whether you're a woman or a male? Like, God has a purpose for you, and He has a helper that He's called to walk alongside you. And with dating, it's not just for entertainment because I'm bored and I'm lonely and society says I should have somebody. It's to discern. Are you the person that's supposed to walk this path out with me? And then I love it says here in the guide, build in the right order. So build our spiritual lives, then our communal lives within the family of God, our emotional health, and then the physical stuff comes later. But the world starts with the physical.
Right.
I'm attracted to you. My flesh desires to have a relationship, and we start there, and we miss out on the most important foundation, which is the purpose of God. And then we want to check the fruit. Is this producing in me godliness and the purpose that God has placed in my life? Or is it producing anxiety? Is it helping me grow closer to Jesus? Or is it distracting me from Jesus? Is it helping me fulfill God's purpose? Or is it distracting me from fulfilling God's purpose? And so much to talk about here in this message. And I know, again, our preachers did a great job sharing it. But what stood out to you from the main thought or the weekend sermon above? Let's start there. Pastor Coach, anything stand out to you?
Yeah, I think, we talked about marriage last week, and we probably talk a little bit more about that again this week. But I think a lot of it is sometimes we look at it as a weird time in your life when you're single and when you're not you're trying to navigate through life and the pressures of culture and other things around you try to put you in the mode, and sometimes it's before time when maybe you need to sleep and people are trying to awake you too early. But I just find that we have a lot of people in our church, and as they're single, they're not married, but there's a purpose, there's a mission involved while you're in that season.
So true. I always tell people, because I was a youth pastor for a little while, college pastor, and everyone thinks I'm supposed to have somebody, right? If you're single, they're like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, you're weird. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a societal thing.
Yeah.
Like and again, it really bugs me that every song that our kids listen to, every show, it's like every movie, it's like at the end of the movie, the climax is when the main characters hook up.
Right.
Bugs the bejesus out of me because that's not the win. The win is pursuing the purpose of God for your life and seeking Jesus. Because I showed this diagram, Coach. I think you did too, of a man walking on a path alone, and a lot of times we feel like, oh, I'm all alone. I'm just doing this by myself. I want someone to walk this path with me.
Right.
But the point is, we have to first discover what is that path. What path does God have me on? Because the person that you're going to walk with in life has to walk that path with you.
Right.
But if you don't even know where you're going, you don't even know what purpose God has for you, how is anyone supposed to know whether or not they're called to walk with me or not?
Yeah, so true.
And so I often tell high school students and college students, you don't even know where you're going.
Right.
You don't have a job. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know if you're going to live here in Hawaii or you're going to move to Timbuktu. Yeah. So I think the first thing is to discover God's purpose for your life. And then you see who's also walking along that path. Yes. And maybe we should walk together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so the picture I showed, for those of you who didn't see my sermon or others that use it, is a path of a guy walking by himself and then a path of a woman walking by herself. But what you don't realize is their paths intersect eventually, and they're going to walk together. Yeah. So the goal of a single season, I tell this to singles all the time, it's not to go find the one. It's to find God and his purpose for your life.
Right.
And once you discover that, you'll see who else is walking that purpose. Yeah. And hey, maybe we should walk together in fulfilling God's purpose for our lives. And I think that is so key. And again, I go back to Genesis. Adam wasn't hunting for a mate. Right. He was focused on God's purpose. He knew his garden. He knew his path. And then God said, I'll make someone specifically to help you to do this.
Right.
And I think that's the same principle for all of us.
Oh, that's great.
So singles, if you're out there, it's not about trying to find the one. It's about to find the purpose of God for your life. And the one you got to find, first of all, is Jesus.
Yes.
And he will put you on that path. And then you'll find people walking that same path with you. I'm so glad that, my wife, Naomi, she grew up in the church, grew up a pastor's kid, obviously Pastor Norman's daughter. And, sometimes we've gotten into conflicts over stuff, ministry stuff, because ministry life is demanding. And I realized, though, even with her, we face conflicts at times. How come you're out so much? How come you're doing this? Got to go on this trip, that trip. But she fully understands why we do what we do.
She understands the mission.
And even
the
then, we still have conflicts every now. Not so much. But how much more would it have been if I married someone who doesn't get the path that I'm walking on, doesn't understand the path that I'm supposed to be on? It would have been impossible to do what God's called me to do. And I think that's the point. We got to find people walking the same path. And she was walking that path. And that's why this works for us. But even then, there's still going to be natural tensions. But it would have been so much worse, I think. Right? And Coach, you got a story that I want to get to in just a little bit that perfectly illustrates that. Yeah. But so as you're thinking, leaders, maybe you're thinking about the marriage that you're in now, or maybe you're single and you're dating. The principle that I hope that everyone will take out of this is we have to figure out the purpose of God. Yes. Because our marriages, if you're married, is about the purpose of God. We got to discover that. Get on that path. And if you're single, get on the path of the purpose of God, and your mate will be along that path as well. So we have to start there. Second question here under reflect. When have you experienced feelings clouding your discernment? What happened and what did you learn? Our feelings can easily cloud our discernment, and we veer off the path because now we've got feelings for somebody else. Yeah, and it can easily cloud our discernment. Any thoughts on that, Coach?
I like what Pastor Kalai said. About sometimes our emotions are so high and our logic is really low.
Yes, right.
And then we're just going by emotions, and we think that they may understand the purpose of your life and they have an understanding of their purpose, but emotions are just clouding it. I would just say, hey, slow down, man. Slow down and let the emotions go down and logic come up, and really look at your life is being fruitful in the path that you're walking.
That's right. Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true. I think the line is, when the emotions are high, the logic is low. Right? When the passion is high, the logic is low. Right. So true, right? And so rather than just going off of the emotions, the attraction, the passion, we have to look at, okay, God, is this person walking a similar path as me? First of all, if you're a Christian and they're not a Christian, they're not on the path with you.
That's right.
2 Corinthians 6:14. one of those, clearly says, the not to be yoked together with unbelievers. Right. Well, why is that? Because the unbeliever is not even following God.
So true.
And so, and the gravitational pull, I know we say, I'm going to reach out to them and bring them into the church. Coach, I'm sure you've seen it.
I've seen a ton of those.
I've seen it way more in the opposite, where the unbeliever pulls the Christian away from God, because the gravitational pull of all of our flesh is away from God. Right. So right there, if they're not a Christian, they're not even on not even in the ballpark of the path that you're walking on. So we can rule that out. But so therefore we got to look in the pool of who's walking this walk with Jesus with me, and not let ourselves be clouded with, they're pretty, they're attractive, whatever. Like, no. The first thing is, God, I'm pursuing your purpose. Who else is pursuing this purpose? Right. And walking this path, right?
And if you kind of cloud it, and you might be in a relationship with someone in your group, you want to coach them and just slow down. And really, again, this missionary dating is really not the way. And what it is your first thing is to help that person get saved. Yep. Not to you to get saved. And you might not be the one, because emotions are too high. That's
true.
So you have to bring other people in your group along the way to help them.
I've seen people do the missionary dating thing, and it pulls them away from Jesus, because they're so missionary way out there. They're not even with Jesus no more. Yes. And that's a problem. Yes. So we don't want to go there. Amen. Let's look at this next question here. Do you know God's purpose for your life? Because that's really where it starts. How can you discover it? How does the idea that purpose comes before partnership change the way you view dating and marriage? Coach, any thoughts?
I think when you know your purpose, maybe the selections and the people you have in your mind as a single person, it narrows down.
It does.
Because not everybody understands your purpose, and you really want someone that's going to be passionate about what you're passionate about. Yeah. So it's important that you have other people speaking to your life and encourage you along the way, because I know God will place people in our lives to sometimes help us to see things that maybe when we're so emotional we cannot see.
So you're saying get other people to help discern with you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. A lot of times we want to keep our relationship secret, until we got it all worked out. But the reality is, we should want people on the front end helping us discern. Yeah. Is this even a person I should be considering? Is this even a person that is that might be headed in the same direction as me? But I think it just starts with you. Do you even know the direction for your life? Okay. Because if you don't know that, then you don't even know the ballpark you're supposed to be in and who you're supposed to be looking for, right? Like a great example, I was thinking about, Tarn and Marissa Liu, right? Yes. They're missionaries in Thailand right now. Right. I knew Marissa since we were in middle school. She was one of my wife's best friends. Right. Tarn I knew since, we were college age, and if they... Tarn knew he wanted to be a missionary, I think, from pretty early. Marissa didn't really know. But can you imagine if he had married someone who wouldn't have been willing to move to Thailand? Exactly. Right? Yeah. He wouldn't be able to do it, right? And similarly, Marissa. I think she discovered later on that she was called to be a overseas missionary. And if she had married someone who wanted to live in Hawaii, they would never be doing what God's called them to do. But they found a person heading in the same direction. Yeah. And now they're thriving. They planted Every Nation Banga. So I think that's a great example of that. There's a purpose that we have to discover first, and then the person that's going to come along with us.
That's a real key, Pastor Billy, discovering your purpose clearly yourself. And then as you walk that path, you'll see people, or maybe they might have the similar vision.
That's right.
And they'll cross
and you can help each other. And that's the whole point, that you would help each other on this similar purpose and path. And that's why I tell high school students, you don't know your purpose yet, so why are you looking for a partner? That makes zero sense. Start there, right? And that's usually, let's be honest, after college. Yeah. So that's why I discourage dating in college, because what's the point of that? Yes. You don't even know who you are yet. Right. And then it just becomes about attraction, pleasure, distraction, sex, let's be honest. Right. And then it usually ends in a breakup. Somebody gets hurt, and because you realize later on that you were never on the same path. So why waste all that time and drama? So I get it, though. I mean, Coach, you have a pretty cool example, because you got married. That marriage didn't work out. Nothing you did in that situation. And then you were single for a long time. Right. Yeah. But you were continuing to pursue your purpose. You were ministering, leading, and traveling a lot. And then God brought someone to come alongside you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was just really being part of my focusing on my purpose, and and sometimes I got a little eager and I wanted to meet people, but I came to a place of just total rest and say, hey, I want to stop hunting in this area and focus on God. And then I had to. I met the Derry. I was going to do her mom's funeral, and from that we struck up a friendship. And I realized, she kind of went through a difficult time in her life when a divorce, and then I began to see her very differently. She's been part of our church, and she was a small group leader. But I began to see this is a possibility of us joining together. And so, I had my best friend, David. I shared with him so he can pray along with me. And I think Pastor Camille was somewhere along in that journey. Pastor Camille, she's always around.
And you know what? You need that. We all need a Pastor Camille to help us discern.
Right. Yeah, so I had no clue, and then as we pursued marriage and realized she worked for Delta Airlines, at the time, and I had no clue that God was setting this up, and He was writing a script that I have no clue about.
Yeah.
Because I know my calling is to travel and to minister around, but now being married to Derry, and she loves to travel along with me. It's now the provision of traveling.
Yeah.
It's
and
crazy.
she helps you, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
she
you were saying that she's such a help when you travel and minister.
It's crazy. She's talking to the pastors' wives. We have this connection, and my wife is a good connector.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think she's more of an evangelist than me.
See that, but that's just the point, right? The Eve was the easier connecto, the helper, the strong strength that complements you, and we see that happening, in your marriage. And the even better benefit is now because she works for Delta, dude, you're flying business class around the world.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, I usually go to the back of the plane,
that's right.
But now God bless me, and I get to the front part of the plane.
And we talked about this earlier, but you didn't know that you would have travel benefits if you married there.
Yeah, I just knew she was working for Delta, and I had no clue about the travel benefits. It comes along in the package.
There you go, man.
As you stay focused with God, God brings a woman in your life to help further that purpose.
That's right. And God brought you into her life to further her purpose, because she was always probably a connector, but now it's enhanced by walking with you. And that's the picture, right? Like we both pursue God's purpose through the ups and the downs, and at the right time He brings you together, and then you walk this together in a way that enhances both of your purpose in life, right? And I think that's just a beautiful thing. So whenever I see you post, videos of traveling around the world now, I do get a little jealous. Let me just be honest, because I don't get business class, but just to see that it's enhanced what you were already doing.
Yes.
And I think that's the key. Get on the path with God for singles, walk that path, and God will bring someone to come along and enhance that journey. You don't have to go hunting. You don't have to, and you shouldn't ever have to leave the path of God's purpose to go find somebody.
Right.
I see a lot of Christians doing that. Stop doing that. Pursue God 100%, and He will bring the person at the right time, and you'll be blessed for it. I can't promise you'll be flying business class. Right? That might just be for coach, okay? But He will enhance it somehow in some way through that relationship. Yeah. So let's encourage the singles in our group on that, especially. But for the married people, this is also important because our marriages have a purpose, right?
Yes.
And as we walk together on the path of God, it should enhance our marriages as well. So last question here: is your current relationship moving you toward Jesus or away from Him? That's a huge key. We should be moving towards Him. What evidence do you see? How can you align your relationships, whether it's single, dating, or married, to pursue Jesus and His purpose? I think the main, it starts there. It's about Jesus. The one that we need to focus on is Jesus. And whether you're single, dating, or married, Jesus has to be the center in His purpose for your life. Any final thoughts before we say
I just think for the married couples, I try to encourage the people in my congregation, make sure you're dating your spouse. Right, because sometimes we have to refresh the vision and the purpose in our life, and then sometimes it's going out. You don't have to go a very expensive place. You can just have an ice cream, but talk about that. Talk about your purpose and vision, and let the Lord guide you in that.
That's great. Yeah, for married people, refresh that vision, because you get distracted. You have a bunch of kids. It just becomes about survival. Trust me, we all know about that. But as we walk the path, as we pause and think about, God, what purpose do you have in my life in this season? And if you've been at ProSide any amount of time, it's not just to survive and make money and have your kids go to good schools. It's about making a difference in the lives of others.
Amen.
And our marriages should do that. So as we talk about God's purpose, we align our relationships along with that purpose. God will bring our marriages closer together. God will bring us to the spouse that we're supposed to, the mate we're supposed to be with. But it all goes back to Jesus and His purpose, and we need to align with that. So whether you're single or married, let's leave that with our people. Find God's purpose for your life in the season that you're in. Pursue that, and at the right time, He will bring you the person you're called to be with. And your single season is not a waste.
Yes.
It's a time to draw closer to Jesus and discover that purpose. So let's lean in at whatever season to Jesus and his purpose for your life. Amen. So leaders, have great small groups. This should be lively. And remind the people, they may be coming in saying, well, I'm married already. This doesn't apply to me. No, it absolutely does.
It does. Yeah.
Whether you need to realign your purpose in your marriage to God's, or if it's you got to help your kids and your grandkids find their purpose and then their partner one day, or you have coworkers, or even later in life, we know marriages fall apart, and we want to help our friends and our family members that are later in life to like coach, find their dairy that will travel around the world with them first class, baby. Yeah. But it all comes down to honoring God and his purpose. So have great small groups this week. Pray for one another, and let's continue to pursue Jesus and his purpose together. God bless you guys. Thank you.